All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I've been saying for a while now that it's been very apparent to me that Kawhi Leonard spends a lot of time watching footage of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And if I were to say that he reminds me of anyone when it comes to his playing style, it would be Michael Jordan, even over Kobe, because Kawhi Leonard is far more of a proficient scorer than even Kobe Bryant was. What do I mean by that? His shot selection is much better. His decision making is much better. Well, it seems that Kendrick Perkins also sees many of the same things that I see when it comes to Kawhi Leonard. Now, is he Michael Jordan? Of course not. Kawhi Leonard's a little bit bigger than Michael was. He's probably about an inch taller, has a bigger frame. He's nowhere near as quick, not as explosive. But when it comes to style of play and how he approaches the game, it's very, very similar. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Listen to this, guys. NBA champion Kendrick Perkins was on Get Up yesterday, and he had some high praise for Kawhi Leonard.
This may sound crazy, but Kawhi Leonard reminds me of Michael Jordan. And I'm not saying, I'm not comparing him to Mike, but if you watch the way he plays, his style, the way he plays the game on both ends, he can have a game that mimics Michael Jordan.
I agree with that, and I think that Michael saw it as well, which is why Michael made him a brand Jordan athlete for a while.
It's not all the way fancy. He gets to his spots. He got nice turnarounds, big hands, palm the ball, and on the defensive end, like he's probably the best in the game.
Well, there's no doubt about that he's the best player in the league defensively at his position.
Listen to that. Michael Jordan analogies for Kawhi Leonard. Max, you like that comparison?
I do. I know exactly what he means, but
so do I.
But Michael Jordan's not the guy who jumps to mind. Because Kawhi's not the kind of player who's going to give you 50 on a nightly basis. Jordan in the playoffs, you need 50, he'll give you 50 like every time. He'll do whatever he needs to do that way. Kawhi is not that kind of ball-dominant scorer, although he can be ball-dominant. And he's not the passer Pippen was, I get it, but he reminds me much more of Pippen, actually, than Jordan.
I could see that defensively, but I think that just his style of play, where he chooses to try to score on the floor, that's more what Kendrick Perkins is talking about.
The competitiveness like Jordan, sure, but the game, like he's the guy, he's the forward who you can put on the best perimeter player on the other team every night.
And from a scoring perspective, Kawhi Leonard is a better offensive player than Scottie ever was.
And he'll do the best job in the world on that guy, like you couldn't do a better job, and also give you a good positive contribution on the other end. Not the passer Pippen was. I get the hands comparison to Jordan, but if forced to choose between Jordan and Pippen, who he reminds me more of, I would say Kawhi reminds me more of Pippen.
You're wrong. I would go with the Jordan comparison because I think we have to listen to the words that Kendrick Perkins stated. He talked about clearly Michael Jordan is in a class by himself. But when you look at Kawhi, Kawhi's averaging 26 this year. Kawhi is your number one offensive option. That was never really Pippen. I mean, even when Jordan was gone, Pippen sat on a bench in the famous game because Phil Jackson called Tony Kukoc's number to close out the game. Pippen's a career 16-point per game scorer. You clearly look at Kawhi Leonard, and that's not his intent. He's a number one option. He's a better...
Right, but you know what, Stephen A. Smith, it's kind of unfair to look at Scottie Pippen's career points per game and compare them with Kawhi. I'm not quite sure what Kawhi's career points per game is, but it's probably somewhere around Scottie's. I think Kawhi's only had about 3 seasons averaging over 20 points per game, maybe four, but I think it's probably 3. I believe that we should stick to the comparison of the style of play on the floor. I see Pippen on the defensive end. I see Jordan on the offensive end.
Better than 25 point per game scorer. He shoots about 49% from the field. He shoots about 37% from 3-point.
Why don't ESPN update their Michael Jordan highlight package? They literally show the same shit all the time, man.
Point range. Pippen never did that, certainly. Defensively, Kawhi does a lot what Jordan and Pippen does. But offensively, Kawhi Leonard is far more significant than Pippen ever even tried to be. And I think that's why the comparison to Jordan...
I wouldn't go quite that far. I would say that Kawhi Leonard's offensive skill set when it comes to scoring is much more advanced than Pippen. But overall, offensively, they probably have somewhere in the same ballpark when it comes to offensive impact. Scottie has some seasons where he averaged over 20 points per game, and he normally paired that with around 7 assists a game.
Is more more palatable than the comparisons to Scottie Pippen.
Look, if there were 3-point shot was as prevalent then as it is now, Pippen would have shot them more. But at his best, Pippen was 22 points, 21 points, 20 points, 21 points, rebounds up 7 and 8 boards a game, assists up 5 and 6 assists a game, 2-3 steals a game. Like throughout his
he
prime,
was never the
clock.
number one offensive option, with the exception of Jordan being gone.
Right, and during that season, let's not forget, the Knicks got a gift in Game 7 against the
He would have taken them to the finals in my estimation.
He was the number one option on that team, and he was the second best player, in my opinion, to Hakeem that year in the NBA.
Hold on, let's fix this.
We're not denigrating Scottie Pippen. We're just talking about what Kawhi's game reminds you more of. We're not denigrating Scottie Pippen.
So, Stephen A., let's fix this historical analogy. You're absolutely right. Kawhi's a number one option, and Scottie Pippen never was. Max,
he was actually 1 year.
Not to Kawhi's level.
He was when
not to
Jordan
Kawhi's
was gone in 1 year.
Yeah,
he was.
But Max, there's parts of this. Don't worry, don't go.
If Kawhi played with Jordan,
you're right
he would also not be the number one.
The well-rounded nature of Kawhi's game reminds you of Pippen. But set aside, who is the right historical comparison for Kawhi Leonard then? Don't fit it into these two boxes. Then give me the right guy.
There's really not a perfect comparison because I understand what Perkins means, Stephen A.
I agree. That's why I agree with him, especially when it comes to Kawhi Leonard's offensive skill set. It's very clear that he spends a lot of time watching film of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and trying to take some of what they did and adopt it and also adapt it into his game and how he chooses to score on the basketball floor. But it's much more Jordan than Kobe because Kawhi does not take a lot of those bad shots that Kobe Bryant took.
In certain respects, he is reminiscent of Jordan, and Kawhi's not a great passer. That's the one part of the thing. Pippen was a very good passer. Kawhi's not great at that. There's not a perfect comparison to Kawhi. He's not like the kind of spectacular scorer we've seen in the past. Grant Hill's game, also more of a passer, right? And maybe even more of a rebounder. Kawhi is a unique kind of player. He is good enough to be the number one scoring option on a championship team. Had he played with Jordan, he would not have been the number one scoring option. But his defense is what makes him special, as excellent as his offense is. Like, who is he? Like a souped-up Iguodala?
And his mid-range game. I think if you...
That's not a bad comparison, especially defensively. Kawhi and Iguodala are a lot alike defensively. And ironically enough, Iguodala has stated that his inspiration, his hero, growing up in Chicago was Scottie Pippen.
If you're going to answer the question that Will presented, I think Jordan is a plausible. The only thing that you never confuse with Kawhi and Jordan, I'm not saying the only thing, but when you look at Jordan and Kawhi has never been a skywalker. He's never had
I agree. He has spring, but he's not an explosive leaper.
Aerial assault, the likes of which we haven't seen. Dunking over 7'4" Mark Eatons of the world and people like that. That's not who Kawhi Leonard is. But if you look at his dribbling, if you look at his mid-range game, his pull-up mid-range game,
Kawhi has vastly improved his handle. His handle is elite right now.
The manner in which he defends, the way that he scores, the strength and finishing at the basket, etc., etc. It's not that he is Jordan by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he's more closer to that kind of a game than he was to Pippen's
Here's the problem with the comparison. We already have seen a guy who's almost exactly like Jordan. That's Kobe. If someone says, like, who was just like Jordan, it's Kobe. If you say who was just like Jordan, it's not Kawhi, even if you see Jordan in his game. I don't know the answer. Like, as I said, maybe a souped-up Iguodala type, I guess, with a better three-point shot. Let's go to this. Let's go to this.
That's not a terrible comparison. The Iguodala comparison, that's not terrible. Especially if you're going to say that offensively he's a souped-up version.
Kobe even walked like Jordan, for crying out loud. Kawhi is very nondescript.
Kobe Bryant is the basketball version of the talented Mr. Ripley. Thank goodness Michael Jordan never went out on a boat with Kobe like Jude Law did with Matt Damon, because he never would have came back alive.
Low profile, doesn't want any kind of sizzle at all. That's not Kawhi.
Let me go back to the Rockets.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. So peace.